As a Russian-linked grain ship slips into Turkish waters, is a key NATO member now being accused of quietly helping Putin launder stolen Ukrainian grain under the alliance's nose? With Kyiv warning that a suspect bulk carrier has found shelter in a NATO port, is the Kremlin testing what it sees as the alliance's weakest link on enforcing sanctions and wartime ethics? After being turned away from Haifa under Ukrainian pressure, has the Panormitis now found a safer haven in a NATO country harbor, raising awkward questions for both Ankara and the West? By letting the ship approach Iskenderun at all, is Turkey merely following procedures, or, as critics charge, actively assisting a Russian-run smuggling operation built on looted Ukrainian grain? After Israel backed away from the cargo under Ukrainian pressure, another U.S. ally inside NATO now faces its own loyalty test over the same alleged shipment of stolen grain. On May 15, Ukrainian officials said a bulk carrier loaded with what they call illegally seized Ukrainian grain has now reached Turkish waters and is edging toward port. Turkish reports indicate the Panama-flagged bulk carrier Panormitis arrived off the southern port of Iskenderun on May 13, effectively shifting the dispute from Israel's shoreline to Turkey's. Ukraine's ambassador has confirmed that the same vessel which failed to unload in Israel is now seeking entry and permission to discharge its cargo in a Turkish harbor instead. Ambassador Yevgen Kornichuk publicly urged Ankara to mirror Israel's stance, saying, "We hope they do the right thing like Israel did," and refused to legitimize the shipment. Ukraine's Foreign Ministry and Prosecutor General's office are pressing Turkish authorities not to accept the cargo, arguing that doing so would amount to profiting from wartime theft. The ship was previously rejected in Haifa after Ukraine sent Israel documents it said proved the grain's Ukrainian origin and justified seizure or refusal to unload. According to local reporting, the Panormitis finally sailed out of Israeli waters on May 7 after days of waiting and failing to secure permission to unload its grain. The Panormitis first arrived near the port of Haifa around April 25 and lingered offshore, hoping to dock, even as Ukrainian diplomats lobbied hard for Israel to bar the ship and challenge its paperwork. An Israeli official told the Times of Israel that the disputed cargo will not be allowed to be unloaded in Israel, effectively halting the commercial transaction. The Panormitis left Israeli waters and moved into more neutral maritime zones after pressure from Kyiv and mounting scrutiny from Ukrainian and international media. The official clarified that the decision to turn the vessel away was taken by the private grain importer handling the shipment, not by the Israeli government, stressing that it was a commercial-level choice. Reports indicate that the importing company was forced to back away from the deal amid the controversy, concerned that proceeding could expose it to reputational and legal risk. Ukraine alleges that the cargo aboard the Panormitis includes more than 6,200 tons of wheat and 19,000 tons of barley taken from regions under Russian occupation. Kyiv argues that the shipment is part of an illegal export chain of agricultural goods plundered from occupied Ukrainian territories before being sold on global markets. Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, called Israel's decision not to unload the grain a welcome development, framing it as a diplomatic win for Kyiv. Sybiha also warned that Ukraine would react strongly to any companies or countries found trading in allegedly stolen grain, including the possibility of sanctions or legal action. Earlier Kyiv had formally asked Israel to seize the Panormitis, citing a Ukrainian court ruling that declared the cargo to be stolen property. Israel's prime minister is already juggling a multi-front war, and now he is finding himself caught between two world leaders amid accusations of theft and rising geopolitical pressure. A U.S. lawmaker has urged Israel to turn away Russian ships that are allegedly carrying stolen Ukrainian grain, adding a new layer of tension to an already volatile situation. On April 29, Joe Wilson said such moves would effectively support Moscow's war effort while also advancing Iran's agenda, which he argued would only deepen the conflict. In a letter sent to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Joe Wilson wrote the following, laying out his warning in direct and pointed terms. U.S. Representative Joe Wilson said, and I quote, "I write to express my deepest concern regarding reports of the purchase by Israel from Russia of stolen Ukrainian grain. At this moment, when Russia is supporting the Iranian regime attacks on Israel and America with intel and material, friends and allies must stand shoulder to shoulder against dictatorship. As Iran has also supported Russia in its unprovoked war against Ukraine, Israel and Ukraine should be natural allies in this fight against dictatorship and destabilization. Russia and Iran are close allies, operating as such in the plain of day. The same Shahid drones of Iranian design that Russia uses to kill Ukrainians, Iran uses to kill Israelis, Americans, and Arab allies. Russia and Iran have further cemented their partnership via a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. Russia helps to arm Iranian proxies like the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Repeatedly, we find that Iran and Russia want the same thing for the world. Ukraine has made it a state priority to counter Iran due to its support for Russia. Ukraine has developed numerous new approaches to counter Iranian weapons, including state-of-the-art interceptor drone, so much so that our Arab allies have entered into agreements with Ukraine to defend against this critical shared threat. The courageous Ukrainian people have valiantly defended their country against a Russian-Iranian invasion for over 4 years. They should be an incredible ally and asset to Israel, facing many of the same challenges and maintaining a similar commitment to self-determination and sovereignty. Russia steals Ukrainian grain from the territories of Ukraine that it illegally occupies. It is critical that we not incentivize this behavior, which serves to fund Putin's war machine. Indeed, thanks to the alliance between Russia and Iran, a purchase of Ukrainian grain supports Iran as well. No country should involve themselves in purchasing stolen goods, but a purchase in this case cuts directly against U.S. and Israeli national security interests. I respectfully request that Israel turn back these illegal Russian ships carrying stolen Ukrainian grain. Moreover, Israel should seek to engage more deeply with Ukraine as a potential friend and ally. Ukraine and Israel are fighting the same dark axis of terrorism. Both stand to benefit by working together." Unquote. Ukraine has accused Israel of allowing grain that it says was stolen by Russia to be unloaded at Israeli ports, charging that cargoes from occupied Ukrainian territory are being quietly received despite Kyiv's objections. Ukraine's president has threatened to impose sanctions on anyone involved in these shipments, warning that individuals, companies, and intermediaries profiting from the trade in allegedly stolen grain will be held accountable by Kyiv. Kyiv maintains that these shipments have continued even after multiple appeals and formal protests to Israeli officials, arguing that its repeated warnings and diplomatic notes have so far failed to halt the traffic. Zelensky's warning has highlighted a deepening rift between the two nations amid their parallel wars, exposing growing frustration in Kyiv over Israel's stance and adding a new layer of tension to an already fragile relationship. A vessel named Panormitis entered Israel's Haifa Bay last week and remains anchored offshore, with Ukrainian officials alleging that it is carrying grain taken from Russian-occupied Ukrainian lands and pressing Israel not to let it unload. Details of the unfolding diplomatic tiff between Ukraine and Israel were laid out in a CNN article published on April 28, which described how the grain shipments have become a flashpoint in their relationship. Ukraine has said that the ship in question is carrying wheat stolen from territories occupied by Russia, accusing Moscow of looting grain from Ukrainian lands and then exporting it onward under false pretenses. Kyiv has claimed that this would be the second such shipment to dock and unload in Haifa this month, arguing that multiple cargoes of what it calls stolen grain have already been received at Israeli ports despite its protests. Zelensky said, and I quote, "In any normal country, purchasing stolen goods is an act that entails legal liability. This applies, in particular, to grain stolen by Russia. Another vessel carrying such grain has arrived at a port in Israel and is preparing to unload. This is not, and cannot be, legitimate business. The Israeli authorities cannot be unaware of which ships are arriving at the country's ports and what cargo they are carrying. Russia is systematically seizing grain on temporarily occupied Ukrainian land and organizing its export through individuals linked to the occupiers. Such schemes violate the laws of the State of Israel itself. Ukraine has taken all necessary steps through diplomatic channels to prevent such incidents. However, we see that yet another such vessel has not been stopped. I have instructed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to inform all partners of our state about the situation. Based on information from our intelligence services, Ukraine is preparing a relevant sanctions package that will cover both those directly transporting this grain and the individuals and legal entities attempting to profit from this criminal scheme. We will also coordinate with European partners to ensure that the relevant individuals are included in European sanctions regimes. Ukraine counts on partnership and mutual respect with every state. We are genuinely working to enhance security, particularly in the Middle East region. We expect that the Israeli authorities will respect Ukraine and refrain from actions that undermine our bilateral relations." Unquote. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar accused Ukraine of engaging in what he called Twitter diplomacy, suggesting that serious matters between friendly states should not be conducted via social media outbursts and public posts. Saar also claimed that Ukraine had not yet submitted concrete evidence to support its allegation that the grain in question was stolen, arguing that allegations alone could not be treated as proof without formal documentation and legal cooperation.